Hello and welcome to the Shacknews Chattycast, the podcast that's walking the dinosaur. I'm your host, Steve Watts. With me this week is the lone gunman, Daniel Perez.
Hello, just no one else here, just me.
Just us. We're a little lonely this week.
One-on-one conversation.
it's a two-sided conversation. If anyone else joins, then they can join later. As I mentioned, this is the Chattycast. So if this is your first Chattycast, here's how it works. Ozzy starts a thread in the Shacknews Chatty, asks for topics. We hand pick some topics, we cultivate them lovingly, and then we chat about them. So, Chattycast. This week, we've got a trio of topics and only one co-host, which is a little unusual. We usually have at least 3 to 4 members, so it might be a little bit of a short one, unless we're just very talkative, Daniel. I suppose that's a possibility.
It could be.
Yeah.
It is Friday, so.
Yeah. Who cares? We can do whatever with our time. It's Friday.
Exactly.
Starting out the show, as we always do, or as we always have in the last 4 or 5 episodes, I think, we're going to talk about what we've been playing. And Daniel, I actually requested your presence specifically, and it's a good thing you're the only one who had luck getting in, because I wanted you to talk about Ark and dinosaurs.
Yes, so Ark. It's a new survival game, kind of like H1Z1 and DayZ, but it's pretty much you're on an island and there are dinosaurs around. So you have to survive in a world with dinosaurs. You get to tame them. You get to build.
Is it only dinosaurs? Is it? When I hear Ark, I think like a wide variety of animals.
Yeah, so far I've seen just dinosaurs and also, of course, other humans trying to kill me for my stuff. Just like any other survival game, you got an axe? No, I don't got an axe. I don't trust you, and then they punch you. That's how it always works. But so far, I've just seen dinosaurs. You get to tame them. You can kill them, obviously.
We have a guide up on how to tame them, actually, now on Shacknews.
Josh put it up. Good guide. So, yeah, that's pretty much so far. I haven't played that much. I punched a dodo in the head, and a flock of dodos came at me, of course. So I learned my lesson not to mess with one dodo because the other ones are in branches and in bushes.
Are the dinosaurs OP? Like, have you seen anyone? Because it's a survival game, right? Like, people will just kill each other.
Yeah,
to be beasts, right?
I mean,
so have you seen anyone just like riding a T-Rex and you're like,
that'd be amazing, but no, I haven't seen that. It seems like since the game just launched, everyone's just trying to get a feel for it and understanding how to play it. So you just see people running around in their underwear because no one really knows how to craft yet or anything like that.
Okay, so this is a game that eventually needs like hot dinosaur on dinosaur action, by which I mean fighting, not
like jousting. That'd be awesome.
Dinosaur jousting, exactly.
With a big palm tree.
It's like 2 brontosauruses. It's like the slowest joust. These big lumbering steps. You're moving at 5 miles an hour. But yeah, like T-Rexes. I want like a player who is smart and skilled enough to like ride a T-Rex and just like, if you piss him off, if you're like trying to do a trade or something, he can just be like, Fido, kill, and then the T-Rex just like eats you.
That'd be amazing. I remember Josh said earlier, I think he said the woolly mammoth takes 6 hours to tame. So I can't even begin to imagine how much time it would take to tame a T-Rex.
Does it always take 6 hours to tame, or is that just that's how long it has taken someone so far because people haven't really figured it out?
I don't know where he got the information from. I would assume he got it from forums or something like that. But I doubt it would take a dodo 6 hours to tame.
Yeah.
It's just a small thing. Give him a little.
The animal that's so dumb, we use it as a word for dumb.
There you go. Give him fresh meat and that's it.
But I feel like there's got to be, refinement. Like, people will figure out how to tame woolly mammoths faster. There'll be like woolly mammoth taming speed runs.
That is true. Yeah, there probably would be.
Yeah, there's got to be. So have you been murdered yet?
By people, no. By dinosaurs. Yeah. I mean,
and the dinosaurs are just like chaotic elements in the environment. They're not being controlled by anyone. They can't be reasoned with. They're just like natural elements, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of them are docile, like the Brontosaurus and other herbivores. They're just walking around looking for herb to eat. And then if you mess with them, of course they're gonna mess with you back. So that's the only reason why.
Do they have feathers? Is this like the Jurassic Park?
No, no, no. The dodos do, though, of course. But again,
Oh yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know why I decided. They were. You know what? Now I think about it, I decided to pick on a dodo because everything was so much bigger than me. So I'm looking at the dodo. I go, I could take this guy.
Well, I did read over Josh's guide. Like, I didn't understand it because I haven't played the game, but I did read over the guide because I read over all of those just to like check them. And he said that he was like, well, the dodo's use is very limited. Like, it might be good for like gathering feces for you. Like, oh, good.
That's
you can
another
tame
thing.
an animal.
That's another thing that's very weird. I was just walking around, and then it would say, like, an alert would come up, you have defecated. I go, well, did I?
Yeah,
Where is it?
Right in your pants.
And you
like,
see a log on the floor, like, oh.
You can tame a little dinosaur bird specifically for the purpose of gathering poop for you. So,
Yes,
game of the year is I guess what I'm saying.
I'll be king of the poops.
I am king of feces.
Put it around your little domain.
Yeah,
Don't go over there. That's the feces king.
Like, speaking kind of vaguely of Jurassic Park, I mentioned, like, it seems like just absolute genius that they released this right before Jurassic World.
That is true, yeah.
That I feel like that had to be planned. That wasn't a coincidence.
There's no way, because it's still very, very, very early. So you see, like, a good amount of bugs sometimes. The lighting doesn't look that crisp, but they said they're working on it pretty much every day on a new update. So they're always improving it.
And what new updates have come out since it sort of started? Like, what's happened so far? Have there been any significant things that you've noticed?
Mainly graphical. The frame rate has improved. The loading times have improved. The graphics also have improved. So just tweaking it to make it look really nice and load fast. And also, I think there was a less memory usage as well. So.
Oh, okay.
All the usual bug fixes.
Is it this is early access, so it's sort of alpha?
Yeah, very early.
Yeah. All right. Well.
And what have you been playing?
I've been playing, mostly The Witcher.
Okay.
I mean, I've been playing Hearthstone. No one wants to hear me talk about that.
Yeah.
I actually had a really good game the other night where I was like one turn away from lethal, and then my iPad died. And I spent a couple seconds being like, oh shit, what do I do now? Before realizing, like, oh yeah, it's on phones too. And I like started up. Anyway, point is, I've been playing mostly The Witcher. And I'm still very early because I sort of plumbed the depths of the opening area. I wasn't sure if you were allowed to go back there after you finished it, so I want to like get everything done. So I tracked down every landmark, did every side quest, did everything. And so now I'm like just barely out of the opening area. I haven't really even started down the story path very far outside of it. I'm told I'm supposed to go talk to somebody, and I haven't yet. But I'm like, I should explore here too, because I'm wringing the most that I can out of Witcher. So I'm just like looking at quests as I find quest boards. I'm looking to see like if they're, aroundish my level. The most recent one that I've been on is the Wild at Heart, sort of the well-known werewolf quest, which I'm sure everybody knows.
Yeah,
like the ending to already because everyone's far ahead of me. I will say I was mentioning this to Josh in the chat earlier. It's kind of funny how the Witcher has a lot of like mystery in its side quests. It's like, oh, there's a lot of times where you start down a side quest and somebody says something, but then they end up having been like a liar or like trying to get you to do their dirty work in some way, or like there's some sort of like bad motivation, but they're not exactly subtle.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Like,
I killed a guy. I know I'm wanted.
As soon as you meet the guy, like there's a quest with a priest. Minor spoilers, everyone. There's a quest with a priest who's like, "Hey, burn these bodies," and you're like, "That guy is shady as fuck." Like as soon as I met him, I was like, "I'm gonna kill that guy. He's totally."
He was talking like this.
Not on the
burn
level. And then in the werewolf quest, it happened again. Like, as I did these two quests back to back, the werewolf quest it happened again. This lady shows up and she's like, "Hey, stop looking into this." And it's like, well, obviously you're guilty of something. It's like if this were like an episode of CSI or Law and Order or something, like it would be over in like 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's definitely no
Jerry
one be
Orbach would be
guilty.
like, "You did it, didn't you?" And they're like, "Yeah."
Yeah. But I'll give
Uh,
you 5 gold coins if you don't tell on me. All right.
that's the
I
other
am
thing.
about the
Trying to
money.
bribe me a lot, which you're allowed to take. I could be like, "Yeah, sure," but I also know if I
Yeah.
kill you, I can just take your money.
Exactly.
There's no motivation to it. Um, I'm playing Gerald as a Geralt, whatever. I'm I'm playing him as generally like a very kind of principled Witcher. Like he doesn't do anything without a fee. It's sort of like if you're familiar with Batman comics, I think it's Deadshot. Like
Mhm.
he'll take any contract, but once he takes it, he's gonna finish it.
Yeah, yeah.
So when that lady came along, like, "Hey, drop this case," I'm like, "Nope."
I
that's
I
not
always see him to the
that's
end.
not how this works. Yeah. So, and obviously, I'm choosing alternate paths that make the quest go longer. There are a few quests in there that you can just take someone's word for it and be like, "Okay, good enough. I'll assume that you're not lying." And then the quest ends and they give you your money.
Quest
And it's
complete.
over.
Yeah.
Or you could be like, "I'm pretty sure you're full of shit," and then it
Mhm.
turns out, to last another half hour or something. So yeah, that game's gonna take me a real long time. Basically, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
It's definitely a slow burn. I mean, I've been playing it as well, and I'm just I am in no rush to finish it. I'm just trying to absorb as much as possible of it because I know it's going to
Yeah,
be,
I have a solid like maybe 30 minutes to an hour of time to play that per day. And it's
right.
like, "Oh, it'll take 200 hours." I'm like, "Okay, it'll take me 200 to 400 days." Basically.
That's the worst part of it too. When you have such limited time, just getting from one place to another can sometimes take 15 minutes.
Yeah, the
So
fast
you're really
travel is not
doing
great, and those load times are atrocious. When you
so.
die on a boss, like I Josh told me that I sucked, and that is entirely possible. So I'm going to out myself here on public a public broadcast. But I kept dying on that werewolf, um, and every time I die, it's like, okay, we'll just sit there and wait for 2 minutes until we load this again.
I
It
think I
was the
died
most
once
frustrating
actually.
thing.
I died
I
once to
I
find out werewolf.
I ended up like getting past the point that it interrupts the fight for like a short story segment, and I didn't
Mhm.
realize it was going to go back into gameplay. And then it went back into it, and he just like killed me, and I was like, "Son of a bitch!" And it
What
didn't do like
do you play with your hands up? Go the
didn't do
story.
yeah. I just like sit back. I was eating a sandwich. Like it didn't do the thing where like auto loads a checkpoint after you've gotten past that story point.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, well you're dead. You got to restart the whole thing. So at that point, I was like, I'm going to bed. Whatever. I'm done for the night.
And it's funny,
Um,
they do warn you early on, save often because the auto save is
the
but sometimes
autosave is not good. Yeah.
yes, sometimes it's fine, but then there are other times where you die and then you're back to a point where you didn't even accept the quest. You're like, oh crap, I'm all the way in the
It's
beginning.
weirdly though, it is weirdly inconsistent because I thought that when they told me that early, like, hey, save often because we really only save for you when there's like story progress.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can do that. But at one point, I was just kind of riding in a random direction because there was a quest that was like, beat this guy in Gwent, and I was like, all right, I gotta go find that guy, you know, um, which I still don't understand Gwent.
Neither do I. Anytime I see that dialogue option, just go right past it.
Yeah, I'm buying Gwent cards because I'm like, I want a good deck,
I don't
but
even do that.
I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't know what Gwent is. It's not a part of the game. I'm moving
But it was
on.
like, beat this guy at Gwent. So I'm like, all right, I'll go find this guy. Along the path, I found these people that were just like burning a house with an elf in it. And I was like, well, that's messed up, And there was like a dialogue option where you could be like, hey, I'm going to murder you all for trying to kill this elf or whatever. And of course I chose that because I'm playing him as a good guy. And then after I select that option, I find out they're all like double my level. It's like
Ugh.
way past my level of quest,
You
And I
don't
was like,
belong here.
yeah, it was like a kind of moment. But then after I died, it reloaded the save, and the save was me right in front of those guys. Like if I took one step forward, it would just restart that story thing.
Ah,
I was like, why did you save there of all places?
wait, it was
Like,
before it was. Did you already save and kill them? Or
no,
was it?
I didn't save at all. I thought it was going to take me way back, but it took me right before I faced those guys. I didn't save there at all. That was an autosave thing, and I don't know why.
It kind of did like a braid where it's like, all right, you died. All right, come back.
Yeah, it's weirdly, like I said, it's weirdly inconsistent. Sometimes it's only story stuff. Other times it's just like random side quests. They'll just be like, you know what, we should save this for you because you're about to die. This is not going to go well for you. You don't realize it yet, but these guys are all level 10 and you're level 4.
So we'll in the background save it, and then you'll realize, oh crap.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically my Witcher experience so far, and that's more or less all I've been playing. I played a little tiny bit of Massive Chalice, which I have not gotten into as much as Steven did. Steven wrote our review this week, and he was all about that. But it seems pretty cool so far. It's XCOM with Bloodlines, so there you go.
All right.
Have you played any Massive Chalice?
No, I haven't. But again, The Witcher, and then now I'm playing Ark. So
yeah, I got it as my Xbox One Gold thing, and I just downloaded it, not knowing like literally anything. And as soon as I started the game interface, I'm like, this is XCOM. Like this is exactly precisely XCOM. But they have this added element of, like you have to plan who's married to who, so they'll have strong children who can also become soldiers and stuff like that. So they like have an explanation for that thing XCOM does, where they're just like, we just have an infinite stockpile of level 1 soldiers for you, like it actually like explains that, like there's a story reason. But yeah, that's it. And I think before we move on into our actual topics, this isn't something either of us have been playing. I wish, but the big news of the week this week, we have to talk about it. Obviously, Fallout 4. Bethesda finally announced it. They actually started a countdown clock, and it wasn't even a mysterious one. It was like Fallout at Bethesda.com,
yeah,
or whatever. And then the next day, the trailer went up. So there's a lot of speculation of whether or not it'll be out this year. We don't know. There's some reason to believe that it might be. But what did you think of that initial first trailer kind of look?
I thought it was. I felt it was everything I was hoping the first trailer would be. It was a nice introduction, a nice back and forth with the flashback, and also the current day Boston. We learned in the trailer to be Boston. Yeah, current day.
Boston's looking rough these days.
Man. But no, it was. I enjoyed it. I mean, there were some people complaining about the graphics. I thought they were fine. I mean, it's a huge. We don't even know the size of the game, and I'm assuming.
Josh couldn't join us today, but if he's listening right now, we're angering him because he's been the chief. He's been the chief antagonist, I guess. Whatever the opposite of a proponent is in our chats about the graphical quality of Fallout. I feel like you need to set expectations based on what that developer is kind of. What their track record looks like, and Bethesda's track record of graphics is not like amazing.
Yeah,
so it doesn't look great, but it's like it looks like I'd expect it to look.
Yeah, I mean, even Skyrim at its core, before putting any mods or anything, it's always looked all right. That's why the mod community has been so large for that game, because they improve it so much.
And if they don't have a just a big open sign saying "Modders welcome" on Fallout, then they fucked up.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how Bethesda games work. But I think like the draw of Bethesda games isn't so much the graphics. It's this huge open world with a lot of crazy shit that happens to explore. And it seems like it'll probably have that in a whole new region. We haven't really explored Boston before in the series, I don't think. And so I'm not that concerned about the graphics. And also they looked, it's like this looks to PS4 graphics as Fallout 3 looked to PS3 graphics.
Yeah, pretty much.
which is to say, like, not that great, but fine.
It's acceptable.
Yeah. And they've really upped their dog tech. That dog looked real good.
Oh yeah. That's where all the graphics went into, that one dog.
Yeah, just that one. The world looks like shit, but this fur, you guys don't even know.
Those got eyebrows now. Look at that.
I mean, it's hard to say much right now because we don't know that much. They're going to be showing us more at E3. Obviously, there's talk of gameplay demos and things like that I'm sure they're going to have. And at that point, we might have a little bit of a better idea of what it's like. Right now, my questions are more gameplay related than anything. I'm like, well, is VATS back? Because VATS was how they sort of translated the semi-turn-based thing from the previous Fallout games. That's kind of how they translated it into a 3D shooter. But there was also complaints of like, well, it kind of makes it too easy. You just kind of like get close to a guy and wait till it says 100% chance of headshot, and then you do it.
I never
Um,
thought of that. Damn.
yeah.
I have to go back to the game now.
you didn't
Oh,
you didn't use the easy trick that everyone used to get through every Fallout game.
I was always
Um,
5 miles away.
I mean, like you could up your stats in such a way that even from far away you would get a good headshot chance as long as you were using the right weapon. Obviously, you're not going to do it with like a shotgun or whatever, but yeah, that was basically the idea. Like, okay, well, you just pause it and kill them, and then you could have abilities that, you know, once you get a kill, that's just immediately resets. So you could walk into a room of like a dozen guys and just like, that's headshot, that's headshot, that's headshot.
Right. Unless there's death claws everywhere. Forget
it. Yeah, well, death claws, that's a different story. But it made it easy. But at the same time, I was never playing that game for like the difficult combat. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't playing it to like feel challenged or anything.
Right.
I was playing it to explore this world, and you would feel challenged once in a while when you walked into an area and be like, holy shit, this is way past my level, you know. But mostly it was just like exploring a vault and being like, oh, there was like a weird social experiment going on in this vault, and like piecing it together. It's very much like an exploration game with like light combat elements, I think. So I'm kind of okay with it being easier and not as attractive, but maybe that's just me. I guess we'll see. But given the internet's reaction to this first trailer, I don't think many people care about the graphics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the internet collectively like freaked the fuck out, which was it's fun to see. It's fun to see like actual genuine enthusiasm on the internet over things. That's in rare supply. So let's move on to our actual chatty suggested topics. What say? This one's from Mille. I feel like I'm probably mispronounced that.
It sounds about right to me. Mille.
What one game? Mille. Yeah. Maybe it's French.
French.
One game could have single-handedly pushed Valve to implement their new and awesome refund policy. So
Mille is pro refund policy.
Like what game recently was broken enough that Valve might have been like, okay, we've gotten way too many complaints about this.
Unity, I would think.
Unity, Assassin's Creed Unity.
That would be I mean, number one.
We kick Unity so often. Do you want to mention Resident Evil while we're at it? Yeah, I mean, I don't play PC games as often as a lot of you guys on staff. I'm a Mac user, one of them filthy Mac users. But I don't know if there's a single offender that would have pushed them in this direction as much as broken games have just been like a thing lately. Like, you know, broken games have been, I don't know if popular is the right word, but pervasive. It's a mess. Like every game release has at least a few bugs these days, and I can see how users would just kind of get sick of it and demand some sort of change, some sort of way of balancing that. And what do you think of Valve's policy in general as far as its new refund policy? Is this going to be ultimately a good thing, or is the drawback for developers enough to make it problematic?
I see both good and bad. On the good side, it helps us, the customer, feel better about our purchase. If we just, for me, it feels kind of like you're doing like a demo in a way. If you're interested in a game but don't want to completely commit to it, you can just go, oh yeah, there were too many lightsabers in this game, so just give me my money back.
It seems like they come up with some pretty smart ways to avoid people exploiting it. Like, oh well, you can play like 2 hours of it, and then
exactly.
And that I saw some people, and this is a valid concern. I don't want to dismiss it. Some people were saying, like, what does that mean for like smaller boutique type games that are kind of meant to be finished in like an hour? Like a little indie game that like you're supposed to like play it for an hour and then be like, okay, I'm finished with it now. Like you just buy those and return them. I like to think that Valve has some sort of internal metrics measuring that sort of thing where it's like, wait a minute, this person keeps buying games and playing them for an hour and finishing them and getting all the achievements and then asking for a refund.
Or even knowing the average completion time. If a game's average completion time is like an hour and a half, like, okay, this game you definitely can't get a refund on.
Or like even if you just marked, like, I don't know if there's a way to do this, but you know how most games, like 99% of games, have an achievement that is devoted to you finished the game, like just find that achievement and mark it and be like, if you get that achievement, you're not allowed to get a refund.
Yeah, it's like when you're
you played it to completion. It's like eating an entire meal at a restaurant.
That's how I was gonna say.
It's terrible.
I didn't like it at all. Well, it's done. There's nothing there. Well, I want another one. This was cooked terribly.
Yeah, exactly. So like there needs to be some metrics in place for that sort of thing. I like to think Valve is smart enough that they've already thought that through. So hopefully it won't be a problem. It's one of those things that we kind of have to wait and see.
I'm just curious how many, if they will ever report how many refunds they've received or they've given out from this policy. I mean, I'm curious to know if people are actually wanting to use it, or if they just, or it's like they like the idea of it, going, okay, well, my purchase is more secure now.
Yeah, it's like, is it something that's useful or something that's more just like a safety net that makes people feel more confident about purchasing in the first place? Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Anyway, Stephen Wong is telling us you can't play a game if you've played it for 2 hours. I thought it was 2 hours and under you're allowed to play it. You're allowed to return it.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
Over 2 hours, you're not. Maybe that's what he's saying, or maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe it's like 1 hour. I don't know. But at any rate, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if there's one game to respond more specifically to Miller's question. Millier. I don't know if there's one exact game that pushed Valve to this. I don't know if we can point fingers or anything, but there has been a definite trend in the last, I'd say, year or two, of games just kind of being pushed out too soon. So
and if there was one game, I'd be curious to know if Valve would ever say it, although I doubt they ever would.
Oh yeah, that would be funny. Like internal Valve emails. It's like that fucking Assassin's Creed Unity guys.
Man, another email coming up.
We got to do this. Oh, and Josh is telling us that Fallout has 2005 graphics. It does not.
Join the podcast. You can say
it's not that bad.
For me, it looks fine.
That's slight hyperbole.
2005. That's like PS2 graphics.
yeah. That's a little off, but I will say, I mean, they're not as good as a lot of current gen stuff. No one is saying they are.
I mean, just The Witcher
but they look better than last gen stuff. They look like the bottom tier of like current gen graphics.
Yeah, that's all I want. Something better than last gen. I don't want last gen graphics on current gen. I don't care if it's a little improvement. It's an improvement to me.
Although this is a weird thing to have noticed, but somebody pointed it out on Twitter. The protagonists, when they only show that they're back, they only show them from the back. They have a weird body shape, and it might just be the way the jumpsuit is supposed to be laying on them or whatever. But it's like they have no like their torso and legs are connected by just this flat thing that's not really a butt. It's very strange. It doesn't really look like a human.
Well, there's a lot of radioactive activity in the area, so
yeah, that's true. That vault, the social experiment for that vault was they surgically removed everyone's butts.
That's all it was. You want to come in? Yeah, cut it off the butt.
It's an awful, horrific vision of the future. There's our title for this week: surgically removed butts. Anyway. Let's move on. We'll continue to chime in with feedback that we get throughout the show, but let's move on to our next.
Well, with the refund policy, one thing I wanted to bring up was I wonder if this is something. I mean, Valve has been leading the way with their Steam for years now, so I'm wondering if this is something that Microsoft would one day even attempt, or Sony or Nintendo. Forget it; they're not going to do it. But Sony or Nintendo, Sony or Microsoft would think about doing in the future for their customers.
Mobab says Fallout 4 looks fine so far. So Josh, you and Mobab can go fisticuffs all you want.
There you go. See, you got on the podcast. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
It looks great to me. Game of the year graphics.
It looks better than Witcher 3.
Oh my god.
Come contradict me, bro. Anyway, this next one's from him troll. He says, you know how lots of games where you're supposed to be a mega badass, you start out as a level 1 nobody with shit gear and no skills. Can you suggest some games where you are a rad dude with sweet powers from the get-go? Can a game like that even work without killing all the challenge right away? Ozzy suggested in the thread that we sort of were passing around this, Ozzy suggested Saints Row 4 and Crackdown, but both of those, you do gain more skills as you go. You're pretty strong from the beginning, though.
Yeah.
It sounds like this is distinct from I forget what they called it, but there I think Giant Bomb came up with a clever name for abilities. What's their name
Oh,
for it? When
that's funny.
when you get the amazing like suit in Metroid, and then like you run into a boss and they take all your stuff, or the very beginning of Symphony of the Night, you're fully decked out, and then you run into Death and he's like nope and just takes all your stuff. That sounds like slightly different than this, where it's more about you can kick ass at the beginning. It's just based on your skill level.
Wasn't there a Mega Man game that like that?
I mean,
where
all Mega Man games.
But did they,
all
no,
the classic Mega Man games.
I mean that you start as a badass, where you have
yeah,
like
you were never you never really upgraded in those games. You just kind of got energy tanks and like boss weapons. The Mega Man X games you did get upgrades though.
okay.
The thing that comes to mind for me is Team Ninja games. Like I might have just that might have been a misnomer, but the thing that comes to mind for me is Ninja Gaiden. Like
Right.
the ability you have at the beginning is the same basic ability you have at the end. There are upgrades, but you kind of have to be good from the start.
Right.
It's not going to hold your hand and like introduce you to being good as much. It's just like, no, you got to be good. And so if you are an experienced Gaiden player and you step into a new one, at least in theory, you'll just be able to kick ass like pretty much right away. Because you just know how to play that game. And the same probably goes for other games with a similar kind of combat feel, like Bayonetta, things like that, where it's very, very focused on just how good you are, how good you, the player, are, versus how good the character is.
Right, with all the tools given to you. It doesn't matter if you have, like you said, 100% of your abilities, just upgrade them. You need to be really good with the combat system because it's so brutal.
Yeah, exactly. And to an extent, I would say that probably applies to things like Dark Souls, Demon Souls. I know you upgrade in those too, and there are bosses that are, damn near impossible until you upgrade. But if you go in there without the skills, I think people who approached Bloodborne, who had played, Dark Souls and Demon Souls, had a much easier time like catching on, as opposed to somebody who had never played either of those and just like dies repeatedly on the first dude, and they're like, okay, what the fuck am I supposed to even do? Yeah,
I saw articles saying there were some people who beat the game without healing themselves, using just a starter weapon, which is ridiculous to me. I can't believe.
Yeah, there's always there's always those crazy people that are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna finish, The Legend of Zelda without collecting any of the hearts, and
and
things
Guitar
like
Hero
that.
controller.
Yeah. Although speaking of music games, you mentioned the Guitar Hero controller. I think those are like the quintessential example of games that your skill level kind of determines how mega badass you are from the start,
Right. Yeah.
Because if you walk into a Guitar Hero game and you're just good at Guitar Hero, you don't need to like get good at this song. You're just like good.
Yeah.
You can turn it up to expert and probably do reasonably well just because you're good. And the example that I always use for music games is Elite Beat Agents, just because I love that game. Like, that's a game that I felt myself getting better, and the final level on the easiest mode was like impossible for me for days, and I kept playing it over and over and over again until I made myself get really good. And then when I went back, months later after I had finished the harder difficulties, I went back to it on that easier mode, and I'm just like, why did I ever struggle with this? This is like
exactly
like the easiest thing. So it's another one of those games that really like, your skill level is what's determining the difficulty, and you the player can be mega badass. That's sort of the deal. What other examples can you think of before we move on?
Just like Ozzy said, Saints Row 4 and Crackdown are two really good examples. But yeah, at the same time, Saints Row 4, you started like a badass. Crackdown, I think you were badass-ish. Like you could still do some
Crackdown,
powerful things.
you're Saints Row 4, you're a superhero, like,
Yeah.
And Crackdown, you are to an extent too. You're like a super powered agent. I mean, really, any of those games that you're super powered, if they start out introducing you facing against normal enemies, like Spider-Man games would very famously do this, like you're freaking Spider-Man, and for the first hour or two, you're facing off against like some random thugs that were robbing a bank, and of course they don't stand a chance,
Right.
But I feel like that's not quite in the spirit of the question, because it is one of those things where they introduce you to characters that are on your power level or beyond it. This is more asking like, what if you could just kick ass the entire time?
Right.
And I think Saints Row 4 and Crackdown are good examples of that, because you do start out overpowered, and then as you upgrade, you continue to be overpowered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I still don't think that'd be that big of an issue, because like you said before, the game should adjust to your badassness.
Yeah.
So it's not so easy. I mean, you could be a superhero with every power in the world, but then if the game developer is like, all right, well, you have all these powers, but we're gonna have enemies as tough as you or tougher, then you're not really that much of a badass.
Yeah. And I mean, like, this is not a great game, but I feel like it's a pretty good example of a game that just like makes you feel way more powerful than anyone you're facing. Both of the Force Unleashed games for Star Wars, because you were like Mega Jedi, or Sith, really, I guess. But you had the powers of a Jedi, but accented to the level of ridiculousness we expect from video games. And then they put you against like stormtroopers, like the quintessential example of like the dumbest, most ineffective army
grunt.
like ever. And the whole idea behind that game was, well, you can just pick up stormtroopers and just toss them around like rag dolls, and it was basically a big physics playground where you weren't really expected to be challenged per se. You were just expected to kind of have fun messing with these dopes in white suits that were dumb enough to
come
try
across
to
you as you have like a cool pose with your lightsaber.
Yeah. They see a dude with a lightsaber, and that was one of the funny things about that game, is like you could just like pick up a guy and just like slam against the wall, and the other ones like did not seem to think that it was a bad idea to continue messing with you.
Don't worry, I got him.
They're like, no, that guy was an idiot.
I did a little more training than him.
I can handle myself a little better, thank you very much.
Now let me get this shot ready.
Oh, missed. Hold on. Let me readjust. Oh,
and then you're in the air, just like the other guy.
Yeah. So at any rate, Mobab suggests Commander Shepard was an example of an overpowered badass. That's pretty true. I think Commander Shepard is. It's sort of that example of what we said, where you stay badass throughout as the enemies get harder because you're getting upgrades, but they never make you feel like you're under their level. You're always either at it or above it. So
I'm also thinking Hulk, the Hulk games. He was always super powered, and then you just improve on your abilities.
What was the one?
Ultimate Destruction was one of them.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Hulk Ultimate Destruction. Yeah, I never played it, but I've heard a lot about the idea that those Hulk games were exactly what they needed to be, which is Hulk just being ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, when that game came out, my friend and I would play it, and we would just do absurd things. Like we would take civilians, run all the way up to the tallest building, and one of the moves he could do was like a pile driver or like a tombstone in a way. So he would just jump up, bring him down, and just go down the building for at least like 15 seconds, and then obliterate the civilian.
Yep, that sounds about right for Hulk.
Yeah, loved it.
So before we move on to our final gaming-related chatty suggested topic, more feedback from the chat. Dozer suggested streaming these via Twitch, which is something that we are looking into and working on, but have not done yet. So
it's on our to-do list.
I just wanted to put that out there because people have requested that before, and it's not like we haven't noticed. It's just,
I never heard of Twitch.
We're probably going to lean more into sometime after E3, after we get a chance to recover from that. Right now, we're sort of busy with this crazy big event that's coming up. So,
but it's as if we never heard of Twitch.
Yeah.
Like, I heard of Google Hangouts. I don't know
what the hell's a Twitch. I don't know.
What's this Twitch?
Yeah. We just want to make sure that when we do appear on Twitch, it's up to snuff with what Andrew and them are doing. And we are not video experts like they are, so we've got some work to do on that front first. So that's all. Anyway, so moving on. Final topic.
I'm gonna sit back.
Okay, I'm gonna take a sip of water. Hold on.
This is a long question. I'm going to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
This is actually this is actually a thread from David Craddock, who has suggested topics before and is a very eloquent chatty user. I've dove into his threads before. He's actually a writer, so it makes sense. So
Yeah, he's great.
the length of this. Holy shit. What are some of your favorite? This is an anecdote mostly, so I'll read his anecdote. Pretend I'm David. What are some of your favorite stores that have since gone to that big warehouse in the sky? Media Play stores were essentially the half a dozen self-contained stores under one roof. Each section, video games, music, movies, books, etc., was massive. The store was your one-stop shop for all entertainment-related goods. Best Buy bought them up in the early 2000s, but as a kid, I hit MP once or twice a month with friends and parents and scored some cool stuff there before they got bought out. My dad bought me Final Doom there, and I also got this CD-ROM based interactive guide called The Ultimate Guide to Mortal Kombat. You can navigate through virtual guides for MK 1 through 3 by clicking on characters which listed their special moves, combos, and finishers. Beyond the games, the guide also showed interviews and making of segments for the first MK movie, one of my not-so-guilty pleasures. It was a fun place and I miss it. I actually love going to brick-and-mortar stores. They're uniformly overpriced, but I enjoy getting my hands on products, taking them for a test drive before buying. What are some of your favorite consumer-first establishments from yesteryear? Whew. All right.
You guys thought we were kidding?
Yeah. So that was a long one, but it's a good question. The first thing that came to mind for me when I read this was Funko-Land, which I know is a chain, so it might not count.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it exists anymore. If it does, it exists like in one place in Iowa or something. Like I've never even seen one since I was like 15 or whatever. Mm-hmm. But basically the thing that blew my mind when I first stepped into one, it's a video game store like any other video game stores, but they had every console just lined up like out, and any game that you wanted to try, you could just be like, I want to rent, an hour of this game to try it out before I buy it. And they just would like open up a disc and put it in and be like, here you go. And like, I was like, what? It was insane to like be able to have that kind of freedom to just try something out. And this was when I had a Super Nintendo. So that's like the level of graphical quality that I knew of. And I don't remember the name of the game, but the first time I walked in there, they had a Jaguar on display playing some kind of rail shooter, like a Star Foxy type of shooter. And the visuals like blew my mind. And the idea that I could just rent some time and play that for myself was super exciting for me. So what are your I guess brick and mortar memories of something that doesn't really exist?
Egghead Software. I remember growing up going to there often. It was like you said, just like any other software store. It was mainly PC stuff. So there'd be actual applications and business type software, but of course they had games as well. And I remember once, one family vacation, we went to an Egghead Software. I think we were going to like California from New Jersey. So it was like a journey. I think it took a week to get there. Then we were there and then we came back driving. So we stopped at an Egghead Software somewhere in the middle of the US, and I saw Sam & Max Hit the Road. And I looked at it, looked at the back. I thought, okay, this is a good game for me. I'll buy it. Meanwhile, I made the worst decision of my life because it was the start of the vacation. So I was just there with the box the entire vacation waiting to get home to play Sam & Max. And I would be reading the back. I'd be reading the instruction. I'd be looking at the disc going, oh, this game's going to be great. Can't wait to get home. And that was a terrible decision. I'll try not to do that again in the future. That was a long vacation.
Land. It was apparently a part of the GameStop and Babbage's family, and they were just branded differently. But then they sort of got folded into the larger family. So
I always thought that GameStop bought Funko-Land, but I guess from what you said,
I guess they were just always part of. Yeah, weird. I also remember when EB Games was called EB Games, and it had that little like Elbow quarterly that came out. They called themselves Elbow for short, which I always thought was pretty clever. There is actually a store that's kind of like Funko-Land that I haven't gone into. At a mall that's fairly near us that we go to, once in a while. I've just passed by it, and it's it looks like basically the same setup where they just have a huge row of consoles and couches, and you can sit down and rent game time. I haven't gone inside because every time we go to that mall, it's because I have some like actual adult responsibility to take care of, and I can't just be like, "Hold on, honey,
I'll get the formula in a second.
I'm gonna go into this game store and rent a game for like 3 hours," you know. But it looks like pretty much the same thing. And I have to imagine that it's not a chain. It's just some, you know, you can tell by the signage. It's obviously some independently owned thing. But I have to imagine the guy who made that like knew of Funko Land and thought that's pretty rad. We need to do that. Has the same kind of fond memories that I have. So
You remember what it was called, the place?
I don't actually, but it's, you know, it's not anything that I think would be recognizable as a chain.
Okay, so it's not Funko with like a K.
No, it's like arcade space or some generic thing like that.
Oh, okay.
But, if anyone is looking for it, and please note that I haven't been to this mall in like several months now since I had a baby. But if anyone wants to go there and happens to live near Annapolis, it's in the Annapolis Mall. You can go check it out and tell me if it's as good as it seems from the outside. Or I'll just go there sometime. That mall is weird because they also have like a tattoo parlor. Like,
what?
Not too, yeah, like I passed by before, and there have been like people like closing the curtain as somebody like, you know, gets their tattoo in. Anyway, it's weird. I've never seen a tattoo parlor like in a pretty nice like kind of pricey mall. You know, that's the mall where like all the Navy people go because it's in Annapolis. So it's bizarre.
Maybe it's high scale tattoos.
Yeah,
like
maybe those artists are like really good. Like they're great. Anyway. Let's move on to our final segment where we just talk about what we are planning on doing this weekend, whatever we have planned, game time or otherwise. So, Daniel, what are you doing?
Oh, I go first.
Yep.
No one else around here.
Hold on, let me check. Anybody? Daniel.
Okay, me. So this weekend I'm going to be playing some more Ark, trying to tame my first anything. I'm going to
using the guide found on Shacknews.com.
I was going to say that, yes, using the guide. Josh just wrote up this morning. Now I could read it and know what the hell I'm doing rather than just punching. See, that's another thing too. I would just punch trees and then the health would go down, and I was just I don't know what I was doing. So now I have to read Josh's guide.
Somebody commented on our guide, I think, or maybe in response to something like our guide that they no, it was on Twitter that they attempted to tame some dinosaurs, and their friend kept just getting bored and punching the dinosaurs to death. which apparently taming dinosaurs is a very long process.
I'm telling you,
longer apparently than it takes to punch a dinosaur to death.
I don't know why, but it's so much fun just to punch things that are extinct, things that are no longer around. You just want to punch them. I don't know why.
Ever since that Simpsons episode, I've always wanted to do that.
So yeah, Ark, more The Witcher. My wife told me this morning there are some fairs in the area, so I'm sure I'll go to a fair. I'll get some fresh air sometime this weekend.
Fairs.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get another corn dog this weekend and steppolies. And that's pretty much for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can finagle a way to take my wife out to see Mad Max because I think she would enjoy it. Baby responsibilities forced us to go separately before, but I'm gonna see if I can manage. But other than that, yeah, I'm gonna be witching, and I kind of want to rant about one thing real quick. I've tried Plants vs. Zombies 2 has been sitting on my iPad like forever, basically. You know, I reviewed it back in the day for a mobile site that doesn't really do that anymore. And I really liked it at the time. And I've been getting these pop-up notifications that are like, oh, there's a new area open. And I was like, oh, well, it's been a long time. I haven't really jumped in. Let me try it out. Mm-hmm. I tried it out last night. And I feel like in the intervening months, or maybe a year by now, since it was originally released, the thing that people complained about back then that I didn't really agree with has actually come true. People were like, oh, they pushed too hard on the purchases and things like that. And I was like, no, it's fine. It's, you know, you just play a level with like a little wrinkle of a challenge and then you get an extra star and then you don't have to purchase anything. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, when I go into these levels, it just feels like the balance is skewed in such a way that you almost have to use the special powers to finish them. Mm-hmm. And the special powers cost coins, which you gain by either like watching advertisements or by playing a certain amount or blah, blah, blah. or by buying them, obviously. So it almost feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like this game that I liked that wasn't too sinister with its free-to-play hooks has become that since then, and it's really disappointing for me because I was kind of looking forward to like trying out some of the new areas and seeing what was new with it after so long, and I just got a really bad taste in my mouth after trying just one level, and I was like, never mind. So now I might finally, after like a year, delete Plants vs. Zombies 2 off of my iPad. So a very sad day for me, indeed.
I wonder if that's something other developers do for free-to-play games where, in the beginning they make it seem like, okay, you don't have to spend anything, but then like level 140, it's like, all right, by now they got to give us some money. They've been playing for 5 hours.
I feel like I feel like it's probably the situation where they figure the people that are playing now are the people who have been playing like every day for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh yeah, well those people have vast stockpiles of gold anyway, whether they've actually bought any or not. They're fine. And it's like that doesn't really work for the kind of person like me, like a lapsed player who just wants to check it out again and feels completely pushed away from it immediately.
Right.
So it was pretty disappointing. And I really love Plants vs. Zombies, so
it's just a shame
sad.
they went that entire route. Meanwhile, everybody was waiting for a sequel, and then when the sequel first was announced, we were like, "All right, great!" And then slowly but surely, we learned it was free to play.
Yeah.
Some people gave it the benefit of the doubt. Some people were just like, "Oh, they're gonna ruin it," and ultimately, like you said, they just ruined it.
And yeah, like I said, I didn't really mind the free to play hooks at first, but it just feels like they must have gotten worse and worse progressively to the point that now that it's like the apocalyptic future of free to play that everyone foretells.
Now when you launch it, it says, "Give us money." Like what? I just opened the game.
Does. Like as soon as you launch it, it's like, watch this ad. You can get some coins. Watch this ad. I'm like, really? Like the first thing as soon as it started. Anyway, so that is the show. We will be back next week, hopefully with 3 panelists. That will be our big pre-E3 show, where we'll have some wild speculation and probably some topics suggested by the community that have to do with E3.
I think this went well. This back and forth.
That'll be like immediately. Yeah, that's fine. Just 2 people. But that will be right when we're in the midst of preparing to actually go to E3. So that'll be lots of fun. You get to hear the tenor just under the surface of our voices that's like absolute terror and and yeah, stress. So look forward to that. Until then, for Daniel Perez, I am Steve Watts, and we will see you on Chatty.